Hey, do you think a dinosaur would use bombs? Dynamite.
Hey, shh.
Welcome back to Not Another Needless Sequel, where we watch movies and propose unnecessary prequels, sequels, reboots, and remakes. My name is Kane. With me, as always, is my co-host and wife, Kelsey. Hello? No, I'll probably cut that out. Hey, everyone. This episode is going to be a little weird. My wife, who is always my co-host, is not actually here right now. But I didn't want to put out nothing, and especially with the new Jurassic Park movie coming out, I figured I should go ahead and do something. So the good news is it'll probably be a very short episode. So this week, life finds a way in 1993's Jurassic Park. Normally I would say, so what do you think the story was? But here we are. So Jurassic Park, of course, starts off with the park itself having a little accident. One of the feeders is murdered by a velociraptor. And so some investors want Hammond, the guy who's running all this, to get some sign-offs by some professionals so that the insurance companies will be happy, the lawyers will be happy, that kind of thing. And as a result, the lawyer brings in Malcolm, and in return, Hammond brings in Grant and Ellie. I believe that Grant is a paleontologist and Ellie is a paleobotanist. Malcolm, on the other hand, I believe they say that he is a mathematician. So they're all here to sign off on this park and say it's safe. They're introduced to the dinosaurs, and it's a super amazing scene. Still to this day, having seen this movie a ton of times, having seen the follow-ups, all that scene is pretty powerful, and it just really almost feels like you're there. It's exciting, I'm excited to see the dinosaurs. But as you're seeing this park, though, I do gotta ask, how rich was Hammond to begin with? Because what else are these investors putting in? It's crazy. But I think it's a shame that the other movies don't spend as much time looking at the dinosaurs early on and being amazed and wowed. Granted, the other movies definitely do a bit of a commentary on that by saying that, people aren't impressed by this anymore. It's gotten old. And I would say that some audiences probably feel the same way, but I just really appreciate this scene. So, how did they do these dinosaurs? They end up going through a lab on their little tour, and in the lab, they meet the head scientist, and he gives them the information. Basically, they uncovered a mosquito frozen solid in amber, and they extracted blood from the mosquito. And the mosquito was, of course, as old as the dinosaurs, so it had dinosaur blood in it. They used this dinosaur blood to basically clone the dinosaurs. Now, with the DNA that they have, there was some missing DNA along the way. So with that gap, they basically fill it in with other animals' DNA. And that comes up several times through the series, but it is interesting the way that they did that. They also say that they made every dinosaur female, so there's no possible way for them to breed without them. They also mention they have a lysine contingency, basically this protein that you need to live. They made it so the dinosaurs do not naturally process that, and so they have to basically be given a lysine supplement. That way, if they're ever not given it, they will just die. This whole part in the lab, you're also introduced very briefly just to a little computer character, Mr. DNA. This cartoon was actually Steven Spielberg's way of condensing a bunch of the novel's exposition into a few minutes. If you don't know, Jurassic Park, of course, was a novel first, and there's a lot more room to flesh things out there. In the movie, you kind of have to get to the point in some areas. Not to be rude to the books. I'm a big reader. Anyway, after seeing all this, they are not really convinced, honestly. Malcolm, he gives his famous life finds a way speech. I one thing I wanted to say, too, is I thought it was interesting that they say that they had to supplement some of the dinosaurs' DNA, because I would wonder if that led to the way that the dinosaurs look. Because, they say that the way that dinosaurs are perceived by us in the modern day is not necessarily correct. They can't be 100% sure how a dinosaur looked, We're going based off what information we have, and then, of course, Jurassic Park has sold this idea to millions. But yeah, like I said, the doctors are not really appreciating this. Meanwhile, the lawyer has actually completely flipped around. He's just excited about the money to be made. It's pretty funny. Jeff Goldblum delivers a line he's like, gee, the lack of humility being shown before nature is outstanding. Jeff Goldblum actually is just dropping banger after banger of quotable lines in this movie. It's crazy. So anyway, They end up doing a car tour, and they actually have Hammond's grandchildren in this car tour, and they're kids, so they're very excited to see dinosaurs. It's interesting because they're treated a little better in this movie than they are in the book. In the book, the kids are very much used by Hammond as like a tactic to convince everyone, tug at their heartstrings, that kind of thing. But Lex and Tim, two kids, they are out on this trip. There's also this through line through the movie that I didn't get to mention. Grant and Ellie are in a relationship. The paleontologist and the paleobotanist. So, Ellie really wants kids, seemingly, through the movie. It's kind of showing that she really has an affinity for kids. Meanwhile, Grant does not like kids. And I always like that storyline because it's a very grounded storyline in an otherwise unbelievable movie. And I think it adds a lot. Not to mention, the themes of family are shown even with the rest of the characters, I would say. So, they're on this tour, and as they're moving through, eventually they come upon a sick dinosaur, which leads to them ultimately being split up. But they have to cancel their car tour, or they have to cut it short, I guess I should say, because a tropical storm is approaching, and they can't be on the island when the tropical storm hits. They are wanting to get down to the dock and get on this ship to leave the island where the Jurassic Park is before the storm hits. It's interesting because it was actually a real-life hurricane while they were filming. Hurricane Iniki, if I'm saying that correctly, it actually hit where they were filming, and the cast and crew were all required to move into the ballroom of the hotel that they were staying at. Sir Richard Attenborough, who plays Hammond, he stayed in his hotel room and slept through the entire thing. And when they asked him about it, he said, "My dear boy, I survived the Blitz." Because Richard Attenborough was actually in the Air Force during World War II. So, maybe noises are just nothing to him. I thought that was so funny. So, another plot point another big thing in this movie that's happening is there's a character, Dennis Nedry. Nedry here, he is like the lead programmer for Jurassic Park. He's set up all these security systems. He's helped with keeping everything running and powered, but he's a bit of a shithead. And he is, in this movie, he's a bit of a shithead. I will say in the novel, it's a little more fleshed out why he betrays Hammond, but he ends up going to meet this guy that works at a rival company, and this rival company wants to imitate Jurassic Park, of course, because it's going to be a moneymaker no matter what. And they need Nedry to steal all these embryos to deliver to them so that they have all this information. Nedry has this whole plan where he is going to deactivate the security systems, sneak in there. He's got this almost like James Bond style gadget. It's a can of shaving cream, a Barbasol can, but it's not a real can. You pull out the bottom and it's got a spot for the embryos. It's refrigerated, protected. It's pretty cool. So Dennis Nedry is now kind of pressed for time because there's this tropical storm and he doesn't have as much time as he thought he was going to have. So he's in a rush trying to steal this, and he deactivates the whole system so that he can't be seen on camera, and he leaves. And he goes and gets the embryos and steals them and is on his way out of the island. Honestly, he's making his way down to the dock, and he gets stuck out in the mud, and he's killed by a Dilophosaurus, I believe I'm saying it right. They spit this like a venom at his eyes, and he can't see, and he's attacked. It happens off screen. In the book, it's actually a lot more graphic. He gets beheaded. Anyway, with Dennis Nedry having died and the system being down, they find out that they actually can't get the system back on. He's doing this like weird fucking thing where when they try and log into the system, it has a picture of him going, "Nuh-uh-uh." It's actually Samuel L. Jackson who plays the character Arnold that is the other like programmer that's there, but he can't get past Nedry's stuff. Like Nedry purposefully locked it down. Unfortunately, this leads to the vehicles that the kids and scientists and lawyer were in to just stop because they were electric vehicles running on a track. It was more of a ride, like to see the whole park. Now, they happened to stop in front of the T-Rex pavilion. Something I didn't mention that's kind of interesting is this whole tour that they've been going on has been a real letdown for them. They found a sick dinosaur, and the rest of the dinosaurs didn't even show. They tried to like feed a cow to the T-Rex, and it just didn't show up. So they're not really too worried about the T-Rex, but it's a coming. So this scene is fucking peak. This is the best scene of the movie, and I would say the best scene of the entire series. This initial reveal of the T-Rex, the way they do it, dude, it's like, it's so slow, you know, they're in these cars, they're in the rain, and that you just hear the boom, boom. You see the water in the cup moving. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And it's just peeking through. It's raining, so you can't see anything. It's so intense and so good. The fucking lawyer dude, he's a shithead. He leaves the kids in the car and runs when he sees the T-Rex. Insane. Now, before I continue with how this T-Rex thing goes down, the T-Rex actually apparently used to malfunction due to the rain while they were trying to film, because it's not just a fake CGI Rex some of the time, obviously. The producer, Kathleen Kennedy, you might know that name, she recalled that, she said, we'd be like eating lunch and all of a sudden a T-Rex would come alive. You'd hear people start screaming. That would drive me crazy. I have like a weird fear of animatronic dinosaurs. I always joke and say that I must have been a dinosaur in a past life that got eaten by a bigger dinosaur, because it stresses me out to see dinosaur animatronics. Like, it just makes me uncomfortable. It's something about it's wrong. It's not just animatronics. It's only specific like animatronics like that. Anyway, with this T-Rex, they, coined the term, or the knowledge, I guess, that a T-Rex's vision is based on movement. And so if they don't move, they won't be seen. The kids don't know that, though. Grant and Malcolm are in a vehicle behind the kids' vehicle, and the kids were with the lawyer, who has now run away and left them in the car. So the kids are flashing a flashlight. It's getting in the T-Rex's eyes, and so the T-Rex is attacking their Jeep. He's, like, trying to get them. He's shoving his nose through the glass. He flips it. It's crazy. Malcolm does a heroic thing, which I actually heard that it was Jeff Goldblum's idea, and originally that's not how it was going to go down. But he grabs a flare out of his truck and gets out, and he lures away the dinosaur. Now, I will say that is not until after Grant has already done the heroic thing, and he gets out of the car and runs toward the kids. This is a big moment for him because, he doesn't like kids, and that's what we've been shown this whole time. So he saves the kids, and they are like having to like survive now out on just the island, trying to get back to the visitor center where they are supposed to be, but there's no power. And all the, electric fences are off. Everything is getting out. They're afraid. Not to mention, they actually find some eggs out in the wild, and Grant puts together that there's West African frog DNA within the dinosaurs to, replace some of that missing DNA. And he believes that that is allowing them to change sex. So they are out here breeding, creating dinosaurs that Hammond and them have no idea about. They do eventually make it back to the visitor center, which leads to, again, one of the most amazing scenes is the raptor attack. So when they see the raptors, I think it's when they see the raptors, it makes me laugh because the kids are like looking in horror, like, we gotta get away from this. And Grant, you can just see on Grant's face, he has this look of like satisfaction. He's like, look, I was right. Look at the way they eat. They're like birds, because he apparently wrote this whole thing about how dinosaurs came from birds, that kind of thing. And like, some people didn't agree with him. Anyway, I really like Grant with the kids, him like protecting them and leading them, and it's showing his growth. Like, and ultimately, I don't think it changes him totally, but like, he's so sweet. He's like a father figure to them. But these raptors, dude, they're on them. They actually are separated, and the kids are in the kitchen. They're trying to fight off these raptors. They lock one in the freezer, and they are ultimately saved by the T-Rex that shows up and eats the raptors. Because, the T-Rex isn't on their side. He's just hungry. Also, during this whole thing, they're trying to reset the system that Nedry messed up, and Arnold ends up dying. You don't get to see it, though. You just find Arnold's arm. And Samuel L. Jackson, he said he was supposed to fly to Hawaii to film Arnold's death scene, but a hurricane destroyed the set and the scene had to be scrapped. He said he was physically chased by the raptors in the movie and killed, and he really wanted to do it, so he was a bit disappointed. Sad to hear. They do end up escaping Jurassic Park now that they've reset everything, and they get away, which is not how it happens in the book, at least for Hammond, because he dies in the book. But the last piece of trivia I have is, according to Dr. Nate Smith of the Natural History Museum's Dinosaur Institute, Jurassic Park coming out, it generated a bunch of interest amongst young people that wanted to become paleontologists, and he said as a result of that, numerous new dinosaur species have been discovered since that movie's release, at roughly the rate of 50 new discoveries per year, or about one per week. So amazing that a movie like this could bring such discoveries to the world. Now, this movie had a budget of $63 million and it got out of that box office with a fucking whopping $1.104 billion. Insane. One of the highest grossing films of all time. On Rotten Tomatoes, Jurassic Park has an approval rating of 91% based on 141 reviews with an average rating of 8.5 out of 10. I rated it a 5 out of 5. This movie's fucking perfect to me. Like, I like all the characters, they all play their part very well. The dinosaurs are just so impressive the way that they do them. Back in 93, dude, are you kidding me? Like, it's amazing to see. And this movie it's a cultural phenomenon, like everyone has at least heard of it. You know the logo, you know the color of the van, you know the dinosaurs based on this movie. It is insane. Amazing. With that being said, let me just say, or let me get to my sequel. But first, I want to say, in Return to Jurassic Park, which is a 2-hour documentary about the making of the movie, Steven Spielberg admitted that the shot of the Barbasol can falling away from Nedry during his death and being covered in mud was intentionally set up so that they could try and get a sequel prepared. But it wasn't until Michael Crichton's second book, The Lost World, where Spielberg then realized, the story was going to go in a different direction completely. And mostly I put that in there because Kelsey, when we were watching it, actually brought up that the Barbasol can was an obvious plant for a sequel. And initially I was just like, no, because that's not even what they do in the sequel. But I see now that there was a reason. So Jurassic World Rebirth releases in the US on Wednesday, July 2nd. So for my sequel, I wanted to do a TV show. Now, I didn't break it up into episodes as sometimes I do with TV shows. It's just that I think something like this needs to be played out, the long game. It's going to be called Cretaceous Carnival. So I want the first season to kind of be the rise, the good times, and you'll know more what I'm talking about once I get into it. The second season to be, I guess the peak, and also where some secrets and reveals and truths come out. And then the third and final season will be just an absolute horror show. The fall and everything coming to a climax. So let me just get into my sequel here. Cretaceous Carnival. The new commercial blares this exciting message while also bringing attention to the Jurassic Park tragedy. Luckily, the company Biosyn has guaranteed no carnivores in this carnival. Families are enjoying their time at the carnival, feeding leafy greens to all the dinos, riding them, petting them, and so much more. Hammond hires a scientist to infiltrate the company and figure out how they've done it. They of course discover that Nedry's stolen embryos were recovered. However, with all the research done in Jurassic Park, the Biosyn company made a grave mistake. I particularly like that because Malcolm actually makes a comment in the first movie where he says, your scientists just didn't earn all this information. They just picked up from other people, so, they're just playing God. And that's kind of what would be happening here is this company, Biosyn, which, by the way, is the company that Nedry was basically working for. It's not mentioned in the movie, but it is. I'm just, in my sequel, I'm saying that they went ahead and got the Barbasol can somehow. In order to keep the animals docile and friendly, the scientists replacing their DNA did it with human DNA instead, thinking it would keep them close enough to be like a family member or something. But with this human DNA, the dinosaurs start to contract common sicknesses from all the humans they're interacting with, and it begins killing them. You're going to have to suspend disbelief if you know things about biology, but, let's just say they didn't know that they were using animal DNA, and they had an idea to make it so maybe the dinosaurs were going to be, less of just wild animals and almost human in their DNA at least, kind of like a monkey is, I guess. And they thought that would keep things safe. And also they thought, obviously, if we don't create any carnivores, then it won't matter. In this moment, the scientist reveals himself in order to save the dinos, but it's too late. Now this Frankenstein-like DNA has begun to mutate and is driving the dinosaurs mad. The ones still alive have started trying to eat and attack humans, and their bodies are becoming distorted and grotesque as they grow new limbs and more. Now the park patrons are on the run as they try to make sense of what's happening. Things have quickly turned to a horror movie. Monstrous creatures everywhere, hungry for blood. The scientist recommends activating the lysine failsafe, but Biosyn remove their need for lysine to prepare for long weekends. Without much hope, the military is called in and the area is quarantined, bombed, burned, and wiped clean of any evidence that this took place. As the series comes to a close, we see a deformed, mutated dinosaur crawling slowly away from the wreck. Anyway, that's what I got. I'm sorry that you don't have a sequel to compare it to, but thank you so much for listening. We do so appreciate it. If you want to talk movies with us, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Letterboxd, Threads, and Blue Sky. We are NansPod everywhere. Kelsey would normally go, NansPod. If you'd like to vote on my sequel being the only sequel, or you want to tell me about your idea, you can do so across our socials or at needlesssequel@gmail.com. The links, as always, will be wherever you're listening. Now, if I could ask you for one thing, it's to share our show with someone and leave us a review. That is how we get new listeners. Of course, I also ask that you come back for more Needless Sequels. Next week, we're watching Man of Steel in preparation for Superman, releasing on Friday, July 11th. Kelsey will be back. I'm so excited for Superman. Unbelievable that we're going to get a Superman that looks happy in the big 25. And also, the start of the DC universe for real, for real. I know the real start was Creature Commandos, but come on, guys. This is the first movie event for the new DCU. So, looking forward to that. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and we will see you next week. Bye.